When will you stop suffering? Well, you will stop suffering when you realize that there is a you that is suffering. There is a separate entity, a separate self-concept that is the one who is suffering. Once you realize there is no actually you who is suffering, and there is just suffering, then suffering is simply passing through. And you aren't the one who's suffering. You are simply experiencing what it is to be human. We are all one. We are all a part of this one collective consciousness, Christ consciousness. It is this whole battle of God going into human form, which we've seen in many stories, specifically the Bible. God going into human form and experiencing what it is to be human, and realizing that all of the suffering that occurs is not you. There is this entire concept of, in the Bible, it talks about the story of Satan and God, and Satan wanting to be like God, so Satan is kicked out of the kingdom of God. And that can be seen as a metaphor for the ego trying to be like awareness, like eternal. The ego is kicked out of the superconscious, whatever you want to call it, Christ consciousness, and it keeps trying to convince you that it is God, that it is eternal, but the ego is temporary. Once you realize that the ego is an illusion and it is nothing but dust and vapor, just like everything else is dust and vapor, then you can realize that there is no you that is suffering. There is no character development. There is no story. This is just life. This is beautiful, by the way. Obviously, there are contrasts to what life is, and at the end of the day, it's all temporary, like a film, like passing by. It's temporary, fleeting moments. And basically, enlightenment, the whole concept of all of these things, you can read 1,000 self-help books and get nowhere. And maybe your counterpart, your peer, whatever, can sit by the river one day, reading no books, just staring at the water, and suddenly feel at peace. No amount of knowledge is going to fill... Ouch, I just stepped on a thistle. We love thistles out here. No amount of knowledge can fulfill something that can't be fulfilled. No amount of knowledge can satisfy the black hole of the ego. Suffering can end when there is no longer attachment to this self-concept that is ingrained in us. As a matter of fact, I remember learning in a sociology course in my university that children do not see the world as separate from themselves until they're about 2 to 3 years old. So if you do not see the world as separate from you, then that means that you are living in utter, complete oneness with creation. And hence, there is no suffering, yet there is still this somatic awareness, this somatic place in the world. So many of us, including me, have taken things too seriously, and one day you'll be on your deathbed like, oh, like, those things didn't matter. Like, this sounds cliche and everything, but you'll be like, those things really didn't matter. And all that mattered was to do things through love, because at the end of the day, nothing will be effective. You can try to trick the universe into having a notion that your intentions are of love, but love and fear are part of the same coin, supposedly, right? In the dualistic viewpoint of the universe. So sometimes doing something out of fear can look like you're running towards love, when in reality you're actually running away from fear, because fear is scary, being afraid of fear itself. What if you approach your fears with love? Because out of love means acceptance, means embracing. To embrace those fears and start focusing on what it is you actually want to be in alignment with. But at the end of the day, it's not what you want, it's what you know, and time is an illusion, and there is no better time than now. If not now, when? So it circles back to this tangent of there is no you that is suffering, and I caught myself reading more books and more books and more books, and I was like, this isn't really getting me anywhere anymore. It's like this perfectionism tendency of like, I need to become a better person, I need to like improve myself, I need to learn more about like philosophy, about spirituality, yoga, Buddhism. Obviously, like, they're great ancient teachings to learn from. I really do believe that. But at some point I was like, what is the reason I'm doing this? Like, am I doing this like out of fear, or am I doing this out of love? And sometimes it really is out of love. But in that moment I was like, 1 second, there's this thing on, whoa. Sometimes it is out of love. But today I was like, maybe I'm doing this out of fear, to run from my suffering instead of facing it. And at some point, you can only do so much about the struggle you're going through right now. And maybe you can write down everything you're going to do just to get peace of mind. Journaling is a great way to overcome this. Write everything down, and then you can be like, okay, I did everything that I can. Now I'm going to give myself permission to live my life. And I'll keep doing these things to resolve this problem. But it doesn't have to take up rent in your mind. You don't have to have that inner roommate, like Eckhart Tolle said. There's that inner roommate in your mind that keeps chatting and putting like a monologue over your entire life and like saying things unwarranted. Like, you don't need to have that like voiceover in your life anymore, because the voiceover can like kind of taint your reality. You can just kick that roommate out. Be like, you know what, like, that actually isn't me. The Power of Now is a great book. That's like one of the few books that is actually like, obviously there's so many beautiful books. That is a book that I do recommend. But yeah, so you don't have to suffer. Everything is vapor. And maybe I'll get some comments that say like, what do you know? Like, you haven't been in war and blah, blah, blah. And like, everyone suffers. It's part of the human condition. And it is not really like to compare one suffering to another person's suffering is truly belittling, but also comes from a place of separation once again. Like, one person's suffering is everyone's suffering. Collective consciousness. I explored many ideas in this video, brainstorming, but we're all one. The light in me sees the light in you. You can get through this. I believe in you.